September, I will be attending the American University in Beirut, Lebanon. Okay, so today I'm basically going to talk a little bit about myself, why I want to go to the Middle East, a little bit about Lebanon itself, and some of the goals that I have once I reach there. Okay, to begin with, so let me introduce my family. So those pictures are of me, my brother, my mom, and my dad. And I grew up in a suburb of Columbus, Ohio called Westerville. And that's pretty much where I spent my childhood. And I actually have two special guests here today as well. Two of my aunts that live in Bangladesh are visiting the United States for a couple months, and I'm very fortunate that they were able to come today to see me give my presentation. So, thank you. Okay, so these are some pictures of my family. So we're originally from Bangladesh, and those are pictures of my parents' marriage and of me, and a little bit of my childhood. Okay, so I'm currently a senior at The Ohio State University. This June 13th, I will be graduating and receiving a Bachelor of Arts in History and a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science. And I'm also a university ambassador. So, basically at Ohio State, a university ambassador is someone that gives hour-and-a-half backward walking tours of campus to prospective families and students. And so, as part of my ambassadorial training, or as part of tour guide training, what we do at the beginning of our tours is we introduce ourselves, we give our name, our hometown, what we're studying in school, and our year at the university. And since I'm a fourth year and I'm graduating, I almost always get questions from parents and students asking me, oh, so you're graduating, so what are you doing right after you graduate? And so I always get to tell them, oh, you know, I'm going to Beirut, Lebanon in September on this great Rotary Scholarship Scholarship, and they're always very interested. And then I have the opportunity to talk a little bit about the Rotary organization, how great it is. So I've actually been plugging Rotary for months now. I mentioned I've been studying political science and history, and both of these areas have been really fulfilling for me to learn, and I'm so interested in them that I've sought different ways to enrich my academic experience at Ohio State. So for example, in history, I've been doing a senior honors thesis on Islamic jurisprudence, and in political science, I spent a couple summers. Actually, 2 summers ago, I spent the summer at the University of Oxford on a pre-law program. I'll talk a little bit about that later. Okay, so even though I didn't always know that I would someday be a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar, experiences in my undergraduate life have been preparing me for my experience. So, for example, I've attended various leadership conferences. I've attended retreats. I actually went as a delegate to a national conference representing a student organization at Ohio State. I helped start a student organization called the South Asian Student Association, and I served as the vice president of that for a year. I helped lead an alternative spring break trip, and I also had an internship on Capitol Hill. I interned for a U.S. Congresswoman in the summer of 2009. Okay, so I mentioned study abroad. So I spent a summer at the University of Oxford in a pre-law program that was basically designed to help students understand what law school was about and what it meant to be a lawyer. So during that summer, I learned about the history and philosophy of the American and English legal system, and I came to grapple with some of the ethical dilemmas that lawyers deal with on a day-to-day basis. And since my future goal is to go to law school, and my interest is public interest law, perhaps in the international arena, it was really nice opportunity for me to get a chance to understand what going to law school would be like. And just a quick side note on the top right, that picture is of me in Barcelona, Spain. I traveled a little bit after my Oxford experience, and I was sitting there with some friends I met at a hostel, and a woman heard me mention the word Columbus, and she came up to me and she said, "Are you from Columbus, Ohio?" "I'm from Cleveland. I grew up there my whole life." So it was really great to meet an Ohio native so basically I've identified some forces and some influences on the country in my research, trying to get an understanding of what it's about, and I've discovered that there's an important French historical influence, the religious demographics of the country affected, and also the Arab-Israeli conflict. So, Lebanon was originally a French colony, and it gained its independence in 1943. So it has a lot of French influence, and a lot of the country speaks French. It also has a really significant Christian minority of 40%, which is important because it's the only country in the Middle East that has a significant Christian minority. And actually, the religious demographics of the country has been a source for tension in it, and one of the reasons why the country broke out of the Civil War in 1975 is because of that. And the Civil War raged for about 15 years and destroyed huge parts of the country's infrastructure, and it used to be called the Paris of the Middle East, and they had rebuilt most of it, but then in 2006 they engaged in violent conflict with Israel, and the country was damaged once again. But from my research, I've discovered that they rebuilt most of it again, but there's a continual source of tension in the international arena because the presence of Hezbollah, which the United States and other international organizations consider a terrorist organization. Okay, so a little bit about my goals and responsibilities while I'm in Lebanon. So I mentioned earlier how, as a tour guide, I get to tell parents and families about where I'm going and what I'm doing. And a question that I almost always get is, oh, so of all the places in the world that you can go to, why would you pick the Middle East? And I think this is a pretty valid question, and I wanted to share the answer with you all today. Why would I want to go to the Middle East? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but if I were to break them down into a few bullet points, when I was thinking about applying to the ambassadorial scholarship, and I was looking at the mission statement and what the scholarship really hopes to achieve, is the whole point of being an ambassadorial scholar is to be an ambassador of goodwill and cultural understanding. And from my studies in history and political science, I really feel that the Middle East is somewhere that could really use some goodwill and cultural understanding. So I decided to pursue going there. I also have, from my personal experiences, got a sense of what Americans and Rotarians would love to hear about. Ever since September 11th and the recent terrorist attacks, people have been interested in Islam and Muslims, and they want to know what Muslims are all about and what Islam is all about. And being Muslim, people all ask me questions about what it's like to be a Muslim and grow up in the United States. And I would say that, I've had a pretty typical experience growing up, in the United States, and I've had some atypical ones as well, and I'm always happy to share them with other people. But I feel like going to the Middle East would really expand the scope of my knowledge about Muslims, about Arabs, and about Middle East politics and history. I also feel that cultural exchange is a really great way to break down stereotypes. So when I come back from the Middle East and give my presentations to my local Rotary Club about what being in the Middle East was like, I think there's a lot that we can gain from that experience. And at the same time, with the United States involvement in that part of the world, I think that a lot of people in the Middle East are interested in what American culture and what American life is all about. And I'm not the only one that thinks that cultural exchange is really important for building friendships and allies. Some of my studies in political science have come to know a lot of foreign policy think tanks actually also advocate cultural exchange as a form of engaging with other countries and people of other nations. There's this think tank called the U.S. Muslim Engagement Project, and they also advocate cultural exchange. So while I'm in Lebanon, I hope to totally immerse myself in the culture, master the Arabic language, of course involved in my local Rotary Club, get involved at the American University of Beirut, and then of course share my stories when I return. And I'll be posting my experiences on my blog and emailing regularly. So that's my presentation. Thank you so much for your time. This is my contact information. If you guys have any questions afterwards, I have some business cards. You guys can get back to me about any questions that you have. So thank you.
what fun it is to get acquainted